after being a vet for a couple years, you start to see there's some diseases that just don't get better. I felt that I wasn't truly making patients better. I was managing their symptoms, take this drug, and it would get a little better, but they would come back for the same issue over and over. And I got to the point where I started to question if I was actually helping them. What kind of care you want? Do you want a clinic that really takes the time to get to know you and dive deeper to get the answers you need? Or do you need a clinic that you can just walk in anytime? Know that in a 15-minute appointment, likely you'll be given a solution for that problem. But it doesn't mean that you've addressed the why of why that problem happened in the first place.
Welcome to the DAFY Podcast, the place where you will get expert-led and science-backed advice on dog health and nutrition. No more confusion and no more conflicting opinions. Just clear guidance to help you make informed decisions for your pup. Because when it comes to our dogs, they deserve the very best care. And we, as dog parents, deserve confidence in the choices we make for them. Let's meet an expert. Lily, welcome to the DAFY Podcast. It's so great to have you on today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. It's good to see you again.
Likewise. Yeah, you're very, very welcome. I absolutely loved our first chat, and I'm actually so excited about our chat today. But before we start, Lily, can you tell the audience, why are you so passionate about what you do? Why did you kind of start getting into integrative vet care?
So I started, well, as every vet, you start very conventionally, right? And I felt I was fairly decent at my job. Cases would come in, I would know what to do. And I was involved in specialty, urgent care, emergency clinics, like you name it, I've been in all those situations and kind of felt like I got a handle on the life of being a vet. But after being a vet for a couple years, you start to see there's some diseases that just don't get better. I felt like I was really missing something. I felt that I wasn't truly making patients better. I was managing their symptoms. Sometimes I feel that I'm just covering it up. It's like, okay, take this drug and it would get a little better, but they would come back for the same issue over and over. And I got to the point where I started to question if I was actually helping them. And I think that the moment that it kind of broke me was I had to put a patient down that I loved for arthritis. And she was healthy really in every other way. She just couldn't get up and move. And the pain medication just weren't helping her. And that was the moment where I felt, okay, I needed more options, better options, because this dog deserved to have much longer life. And that's when I got interested in doing acupuncture. And from that, when I learned acupuncture, I started doing acupuncture on almost everybody. Like everyone that would try it would offer. And I started to see really big changes, almost miraculous. There were dogs that were coming in to be euthanized that after acupuncture sessions, they got up. So, for me, that opened the whole door to integrative care. So from there, I started taking more and more trainings. And now it's one of those things that once you see, you can't unsee. And I can never go back.
I love that. That's such a beautiful, beautiful story. And I feel like every time I talk to integrative vets, or more of holistic vets that kind of treat the whole body, they always have a story, right? They're always going to be there was something that made them really realize, actually, exactly what you said, there is more out there than what I actually have in my toolbox. Let's go and explore that. And that's so beautiful, I think, because, I feel like that's kind of possibly one of the reasons why conventional vets are kind of still stuck in the same place, because you're right, you get taught what you get taught and you can't change that, right? So it's kind of from what I've learned over the last few months it's up to each individual person to then go and explore what's out there and see what that does, right? And I think people start to see so many changes, and that's everyone that I speak with tells me the same thing, and it's beautiful. So my next question to you really is that most dog parents, and that's what we kind of discussed about chatting today, So most dog parents, when we have a dog, we only know like my local vet, right? So I get a dog, I need to go and register them to my local vet, or I know the emergency vet, which is the vet that when my vet is closed, I go to if I have an emergency. But we know there are more different type of vets out there. So how would you explain different type of vets? Yeah, care in simple terms to a dog owner.
Well, I think you can really get a feel by even just, I call them their introductory meetings, meaning that you do have to go into the practice, meet the staff, meet the front desk, if there is a front desk, meet the doctor, meet the technicians, meet the assistants, because it's really hard. Most days people start with a website, right? They look at the website and they look at the services and then they decide, okay, is this worth checking out? Most often, and this is the part where I feel the veterinary practice actually should and could do a lot better, is put on your website who you serve and what kind of philosophy you have, because it really would reduce people a lot of frustrations and even friction from the get-go if they know what kind of clinic you are. Clinics are really designed to be lower cost and high volume, meaning that their goal is to get you in and out, and you can probably get appointments pretty easily. It would be lower cost, but they may run like, okay, annual exam means that they see your dog, they do a brief exam, they do the vaccines, they check off deworming, and maybe a couple chats about what's going on. And then if there are more complicated issues, they would either send you somewhere else or they would set up a longer appointment. Versus there are clinics that are designed to go more in depth. They spend time with you. The intake process is usually a little bit longer. It's usually not, oh, you're a new client, come on in and we'll take you. It usually means like, okay, here's a new patient application. This is what we need to know. And this is what the process look like. They would spend a little bit more time with you from the beginning. And then there's specialty and urgent care emergency, right? And those are always good to know in your neighborhood. Okay, if you have an emergency, where do you go? Or urgent care that you can walk in and be seen should there be emergencies. The biggest thing for pet parents to figure out whenever you start deciding where you want to go, I do recommend, like, yes, check out their website, because how often they update the website, how up to date do they show their team's pictures on their website. I feel some of those little things can tell you a little bit about that clinic, but don't base your judgment purely on the website, because honestly, many people get so busy in the clinic, they're not really spending a lot of effort updating their website. But I think you can get an initial feel, but do introductory meetings, meaning that you can just schedule an exam just to go in, meet the doctor, meet the staff, because that is probably the most important thing. But know for yourself, what are your non-negotiables? What are you looking for in the practice? I often think that we don't tell pet parents enough that the first thing is actually deciding what kind of care you want. Do you want a clinic that really builds a relationship with you, takes the time to get to know you, and dive deeper and spend the time working with you to get the answers that you need? Or do you need a clinic that you can just walk in anytime? It's much more convenient, it's quick, it's easy, but they may not spend as much time with you. I think everybody's got different priorities and considerations. Know that that comes with budget concerns, right? Because you got to decide for your budget what makes sense. It is really hard to ask. I also think the part that we don't talk about enough that we should is the money part, because you can't ask a doctor to spend an hour with you on each visit and expect to pay for the prices that a 15-minute appointment doctor would charge, right? That's not realistic. Also, find that balance for you. Is where is your budget? What makes sense? Or do you put a care team together where you go to one place for certain things and you're okay with that, and maybe a more specialty center on a case-by-case basis, and that's okay too. So, but begin to form that plan and find the clinics around you that make sense for you.
Yeah, that's such a good point that you've made about the fact that, a normal conventional vet practice, they only have 15 minutes. And that's something I hear all the time from dog owners. They are very frustrated because they go in, they go out. The vet doesn't really know that dog well, other than for the usual vaccinations and things like that. And I think there is a little bit of kind of like managed expectation around, what can we expect? What should dog owners expect, in your view, from a 15 minutes vet appointment?
You basically go in with one goal. Don't come with a list of things of like, these are the 5 things I want to be addressed. These are all the things that are wrong. And I want to talk about diet and supplements and weight loss and all of that. It's like, no, you can go in probably with, okay, I am here to update vaccines. I'm here because I'm seeing diarrhea the last 3 days. I'm here because there is a skin lesion. There's a hot spot. My dog is itchy, right? And know that in a 15-minute appointment, likely you'll be given a solution for that problem. But it doesn't mean that you've addressed the why of why that problem happened in the first place. So usually a quick appointment means that there's a quick solution to this urgent problem. But sometimes it takes a little bit of digging. It might buy you time to say, okay, if it comes back again, do I take the same approach and just wait for it to become a problem again? Or do we now need to dig a little deeper and find a specialty clinic or integrative clinic so that we can look into why this is happening and be more preventive? I also think about it as reactive versus preventive care, right? Because most clinic run on reactive care. They wait until there's a problem and they will be there to address it. But they're not really there and they don't have the time to dive into how to prevent issues from happening. That's more preventive care. And that does go more into, I think, integrative and holistic models because we will have time to look at the root causes, look deeper and see what's going on, make a long-term plan. And I always think also, I think people are trained to think that once you have your general practitioner veterinarian, they can do everything. Maybe they can, but most often that's also not a reasonable expectation. No vet is going to be able to be trained in every modality, every single issues, every single system. So be really honest with your vet and say, hey, is this something you're really comfortable addressing? Or do you have referral? When it becomes something that's more specific, because just like human medicine, we have specialties too. So it's important to know that it is okay actually to have what I call the veterinary care team. That means you have multiple doctors that are meeting those needs rather than trying to expect one doctor, one clinic to do it all, because that it doesn't realistically it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I actually experienced that like firsthand with Rusty because he's a little cavalier and he's always had like a little heart murmur. And the way I care for him is exactly what you said. He has his cardiologist who I've managed to build a really good relationship. It is expensive, but again, like you said, it just goes, like if you decide to go through the route, then do it that way, because I spend at least 45 minutes with his cardiologist every single year. Where we talk about the changes, the things that, I'm planning to supplement him with. And she looks at the research, she reads the studies, she gets back to me. And I think that's what really made me start to fall in love with integrative vets. She's a little bit integrative. She's not fully integrative, but she's really open to listen to what I'm saying as a dog owner, as opposed to just say, no, you can't use that. He's got a heart problem. Let's check it every year. Just come back in 12 months. If he got worse, then we'll put him on medication. If not, we'll just keep checking. And it goes back to the point that you've made, is that what is the level of care that you want for your dog for the rest of the life? So you don't want to necessarily wait until the problem happens. But it's like, what can I do? We know it does have a murmur. It's not bad right now, but what can I do to prevent that from getting worse in the first place? Who can I work with to make sure I'm doing it in a safe way at the same time? And I love that. I love that.
To that example, I think that's also a very interesting concept that somehow we have adopted, is these annual exams, 12 months. 12 months is a really long time for a pet. If you think about their lifespan, waiting a whole year to go and check out to see if the pet is having issues, maybe we can get away with it when they're younger, but definitely not when they get older, because things will change as quickly as 2 or 3 months. I've seen that happen. So I also think we need to let go of the idea they get their annual exams and that's preventive care. That's not enough. I feel that they need to be seen much more frequently, especially a pet, like your example with a heart murmur. I think a lot of times in a year, things could change, and there's actually a lot that you could do preventively in that year. So maybe the cardiologist once a year, if that seems appropriate and things are stable, but probably have a like an integrative vet. That's exactly what you said. That's helping you see that stage and keeping tabs on things.
I love that because you see, I go to back to my home country in Italy every once a year as well. And what I tend to do, just because this is my own peace of mind as a dog mom, is I do a heart scan in like August time in the UK, but then I have a cardiologist that he sees him in Italy as well, and I check his heart twice a year. It's a little bit cheaper there because I think that's also the dog owner's concerns, right? It's so expensive to do a heart scan nowadays. Like it really, really, really is, especially here in the UK. It's crazy the amount of money they need to spend. Most of the time it's covered on the insurance if you have one, or most of it is covered on the insurance, but it is really expensive. And I think that's possibly one of the reasons why some people are just waiting, because the financial side as well, it's hard, isn't it, in the world that we live in today.
Yeah. And I think that helps with a little bit of pre-planning sometimes, especially once we have a pet in our lives. I think we need to start either having pet insurance or some funds or savings account put aside because we know that they need the most care when they get older, and those diagnostic and treatments do get expensive, like you said. So there are some ways to maybe help with that, and know that many clients, I don't know if this is true in UK, here we have most clinics will have payment options too. So let's say if you have to do a very expensive piece of like the heart scan once a year, could you then break it into 6 months payment so that it's not so much all at once? I feel that those are conversations that's helpful before things happen so that you're not trying to make that emotional decision of like, oh, should I get my pet seen? Now you'll have some peace of mind that, okay, this money's tucked away, or I've got insurance, or I know their payment plan options and I can plan for that.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, that's such a good point. 100%. And a question about, dogs that have chronic illnesses. So I have worked with many dogs. I was running a doggy daycare and boarding business for 3 years before I started the film. And I saw every single day dogs that were living with chronic illnesses. Very often in the UK, it's allergies, itchy skin, yeasty ears. And you always have the same problem, right? So you go to your local vet, and what they get from the local vet is exactly what you said. You got 50-minute appointment. Let's make sure the dog is not in pain. So let's put this dog on steroids. And then you need to go back 2 weeks later because the problem is still there. Continue the steroids, but then again, it gets worse. Okay, let's go and clean his ears now and things like that. I completely get what you said about specializations. There are some vets that are more specialized. However, what I see, at least here in the UK, is dog owners don't get referred often enough. I have looked after dogs that have been on steroids for allergies for years. And I'm not saying a dog, I'm talking about a good amount of dogs, right? And they're all on the same medication and they all get the same treatment. So we know it's all about switching off the symptoms, but not really addressing the root cause of the problem. Why do you think conventional vets that are not necessarily specialized in allergies and things like that, when at that point, I completely, totally agree with you, you need an integrative approach because you might want to look at the gut, you might want to look at the diet. There are loads of different, and this is why it's so confusing for everybody. But why do you think like normal vets don't just go off and refer these people straight away and say, actually, we've tried Apoquel now for like a year. This dog has been on the same medication for a year. Why is it that we're not pushing these dogs to go and see the specialist a little bit quicker, do you think?
Ooh, that is
sorry.
a question. Okay, so probably two big things. One is a lot of vets don't know that there are other options because they've been taught allergies are managed this way. And it's almost a protocol in some ways that if you're trained conventionally, that's what you follow. These are the drugs available for allergies, and they reach for that. And they literally don't know that there are other options because they probably never looked outside of the conventional world to see like, okay, yes, you need to look at the gut, you need to look at diet, lifestyle, and toxin and all of those things. Because if you ask me really early on in my career, I wouldn't have known either. And I wouldn't have made any referrals because I thought I would be managing allergy the right way already. So that's probably the most common reason is that they just don't know. And the second one may be that they know that there are options like integrative holistic options, but they don't trust it, meaning that whether it's that more research is needed or more of us need to really get out there and champion some of these cases and options. I think that there is also a trust issue. Holistic medicine for a long time has been labeled as more woo-woo and non-scientific, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes there is that block that, well, why would I refer to holistic if I don't believe that it will work? So they wouldn't necessarily reach for that option. I think more vets are open to it now, but they have to have a relationship. I do think most vets care a lot about patients and wanting them to get better. So for them to refer, they would have to have some trust in who they're referring to.
Yeah.
And I think that may not always be the case as well, because we don't necessarily have these conversations all the time about collaborating and meeting each other where they are. And on the business side, sometimes it's about, and I don't know, I can't speak for every vet, and I'm sure there are vets out there that are truly doing the best thing. They just don't know the options exist. But as in any business, there's also a protective layer, meaning that if you refer to another integrative practice for your allergy case, would they come back to you for care, right? There is that competitive
Yeah.
I think business side of things that sometimes I do hear about. That again goes back to trust and being able to work as a veterinary care team and know that, okay, this is what you are the most good at. I would refer back to, I always tell my clients that you should have a conventional vet because there's things that I don't do, meaning I don't have an OR for surgeries. I don't have x-rays. And you have to go back to your conventional vet for certain things or really urgent or emergency treatments.
Yeah.
So I think it's hopefully in the future, we're working towards a direction where it's getting better. But I don't think pet owners are often given those options
Yeah.
because of those reasons.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's getting better? Like over the years, that obviously you've been in the industry for a while now, 20 years, right? Or 30?
Yeah, almost.
Yeah. Do you feel like, the moment you actually started to practice integrative medicine to where you are today, do you think conventional vets are a little bit more open to kind of like referring their clients to more of an integrative vets?
It's very slow, meaning
Mm.
most of my clients find me on their own. So right now, I would say it seems that it still makes more sense to let the pet owners know that they have this option, and they kind of have to take it upon themselves to reach out and find integrative vets. Because while I think there are some vets in my area that would refer to me, I often find that I'm the last resort, meaning that they run out of every single option and the pet's not doing well and not doing better. And then I get the referral. It's not often in a best case scenario where I wish, okay, can we work together preventively before things get really bad and they've tried every drug under the sun? And then, me being the Hail Mary, because I can do a lot better work and show up more powerfully when I get those cases early on as well. So over the years in my community, I've developed a good connection and trust within my community. So it is getting a little bit better. I don't find that I'm often the first referral that they make, probably for a lot of different reasons. It's getting better, but it's slow. I would say at this stage, I would encourage pet owners to empower themselves. If this is a care they're looking for, they are likely going to have to look and push for it themselves.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think that is the best approach. I agree with you because like I've been in it myself, and I can just resonate with everything you're saying, like 1000%. Is I was talking to Russ's cardiologist about I found an amazing homeopathist for dogs. She's actually done a talk at like a natural dog event here in the UK. And it's just, and I was like, we're doing a gut microbiome test. And, because they don't know, and they've not been taught about the gut microbiome type. But it's just, and that's the sad thing, isn't it? Like I saw all these dogs with allergies, all these dogs that were really poorly. Actually, there is so much you can learn from a simple thing like a gut health.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I think when you're integrity and you're like, I know I can help, like you're like inside you screaming, like, I know I can get your dog better. But I think from a dog owner's kind of culture, it's getting a little bit different now. But I had dogs all my life. I always went to the same person. Why would I do anything different? And we used to have dog owners as well, my clients, that we used to go and get recommendation, doing elimination diets and things like that with the vet. And I had cases where the food they were put on was not giving the dog clearly enough calories, and the dog was losing kilograms of their weight within weeks. And it's just, but the culture is, I go to my local vet. And so it's all about the education that needs to be done to really like let people understand you do have better options out there. And people don't want to see the dog suffer, but it's just about teaching them and educating them that there are other options out there. And what you said, that they're not woohoo options. They have got years, studies behind it. It's just that they're not being taught in vet school, in the general vet school that vets do when they're learning to become vets, right? Yeah, I totally agree with you. Can I ask you then, on a more not positive note, but from a dog owner perspective, right? Like when you think as an integrative vet, give a dog a good life or a good life for a dog, right? What does a good life for a dog look to you?
What does a good life of a dog looks like to me? I think the first thought that comes into my head is nutrition. I also think for a very, very long time, we are taught, unfortunately, feed dogs kibbles, right? And I think we're getting better with that idea. But I don't think we've moved far away from the idea also that they need to have different types of foods often. They really truly need to eat like what we eat. For a long time, we believe that they need to be, on a complete and balanced meal, every single meal. So everything is like, okay, you need this much vitamins and mineral in every meal. And that was designed so that they can have the same thing day after day. I have literally seen dogs come to life when they get different types of fresh foods every single meal. Like, ooh, what are we having for breakfast? What are we having for dinner? And here's some mushrooms, and here's, some strawberry or blueberry, and, different meats. And the sparks and the joy that they have around mealtime and just life in general, because some dogs, actually a lot, most, if not all, they should really live to eat. Like that is, right? Like one of the biggest joys in life. So I think we can do a lot better on nutrition. I think we can do a lot better on lifestyle. And that can look very different from everyone. What does the bonding look like? Right? Like what do we spend our time doing with our dogs? Because most time are we thinking about it from our perspective, like, oh, I want to cuddle with you and come spend time with me, and that's more for us, that's what we like. But think about it from their perspective. Do you have a dog that lives to go on walks or like go run free? Can you create space and time to do that? What does your dog really, really love, and what does joy look like? So I can't answer it for every dog. Like for a dog with a good life, this is what it looks like for every dog, because some dogs don't want to go for, like a hike. They don't. They want to sit on your lap and be petted for 3 hours straight. So I think that question, in some sense, I think it looks like, okay, what does food and nutrition look like for that dog? And number two, what does bonding and what does good quality fun time look like from your dog's perspective, not from your perspective?
Really love that, yeah. Because you're completely right. Me having looked after so many dogs, they are so different. Like mine would be up to go like 4 hours on a hike, and like a cockapoo would just want to play with a ball all day, right? You know your dog so well, and how can you match that as much as like I feel bad if he doesn't go for a walk for 2 hours every day, 1 hour in the morning, he loves to sniff. That's his happy place. I can see the way his tail is, right? Like rounded. Say, I'm in my happy place. I can sniff everything. And some other dogs, they just want to cuddle all the time. And, other dogs are like their own space. And it's so true, isn't it? When you say nutrition, you've put a study, I saw it just before this call actually, about Fresh Food versus Keto that was published by University of Helsinki.
Mhm.
Can you just tell me a little bit about that study? I loved it, by the way, because I love the fact that you always ask for your colleagues' opinion and, what other people think. But yeah, can you, because obviously you mentioned nutrition, tell us a little bit about the study.
Yeah, so this one actually the backstory was that my own dog, when I got her, she was eating kibbles because that's what I thought was best nutrition for years. And then when she was young, she was fine. She ran her a bowl, she eat the same thing, and I never really thought much about it. And then probably around 6 or 7 years old, she started to just not get very excited. Like you would put the food down, and she just like, huh, what is this? And really, and it was one Thanksgiving that we were all cooking up this huge meal. And then I sit down her food and she literally was just like, gave me this look like, no way. Like she could smell all the things and she knows that's not the food she's getting. And I think it was that. And that day I started giving her foods that we cook for ourselves, like little turkey, sweet potato. She just like lit up. She was so happy. It's like, oh my God, like if this makes her that happy, what do I have to lose? Like I could just start with toppers. Eventually, I actually switched her to all fresh food and I just saw her whole being change. It actually fixed. She was having some chronic gut issues I couldn't fix as a doctor. I kept putting her on all these medications. And then as soon as I switched the food, like a couple weeks in, it just went away on its own. And this was before I learned about microbiome and all that stuff. And then I was just blown away. And then for the rest of her life, she was on fresh food. She lived to be 17. I never diagnosed another major disease. She passed away, honestly, from cognitive decline. Like she just didn't have the quality of life that I thought she deserved, but no major health issues. And that to me was such a wake up call. And when I saw this study and just came out, University of Helsinki actually has been putting out a ton of really good study, but this was the newest one. And I think the wake up call to me, what stood out, of course, the big takeaway message was that they measure all these parameters and compare dogs on kibbles versus dogs on. This study was about raw fed, and all the markers for raw fed dogs were much better, which actually for those of us that are in a fresh feeding space, that's not a surprise at all. I wouldn't be like, wow, really? But here's the thing. I think for me, what stood out is that they did that study in 4.5 months and they saw measurable changes. We were taught for a long time to feed dogs on kibbles for years. And if these changes can be measurable in as short as 4.5 months, like I was feeding my dogs on kibbles for 6 or 7 years. Like that probably already did irreversible damages. And I want to be really careful because in some ways I have never wanted to be the vet that really makes people feel bad about their choices. It has never been about anti-kibble because I do know that sometimes it is the most convenient option and the most economical. But could we do fresh food toppers? Could we at least switch something out? I would say because I felt a lot of guilt when I finally saw what fresh feeding could do for my dog. I don't want people to end up feeling the kind of guilt that we often struggle with if you've been feeding kibbles because you couldn't have known. But studies like this that are finally coming out and looking at things that really should be more widely available, and we should just be asking questions. I have never been the person that says I'm right and you should listen to me because this is an evolving journey. I don't know, in another couple of years I'll learn something and I would have a different point of view on nutrition again because I think that's ever evolving. But I do think it's important to question and do better all the time.
Yeah.
I think the worst thing that can happen is we don't change. We just hold on to old beliefs and keep doing that. So I think for me, that was my biggest takeaway from that nutrition study. I'm glad things like this is coming out more. Today, there has been no papers on kibble diet being more superior than fresh food diet, but there's not enough, I think, to convince our conventional colleagues yet to make the switch. And I think the realistic question is like, okay, if we do know that's a better nutrition, how do we make feeding like this more accessible to every day dog owners, right? Yes, I do know that it takes more energy. I will tell you, and this isn't advice for everybody. I think everyone needs to talk to their vet, their integrative vet. But I think my dog ate what I ate, meaning that I have the way that I prepare my diet is pretty simple. I don't use a lot of seasoning. I don't, do a lot of processing. It's a lot of soups and blend diet. We don't use a lot of salt and pepper. So honestly, my dogs just ate what I ate, and that worked out really well.
Love.
That was simple. It wasn't super costly because I was already buying the food, and to also bring some realism to this, she was a 6-pound Pomeranian. So I understand if you have 100-pound dog, it probably looks a lot different.
Of them or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what? It is, yes, I agree with you. It's hard because you would think like I've got my, with it in pounds, 20 pounds dog, right? And it's different, isn't it? You're right. When you have 100 pounds dog and you've got 3 of them and things like that. But I completely agree with you. I was talking to Dr. Susan Recker yesterday, and obviously she I don't know if you know her, but she's animal diet formulator, and she said the same thing. She's like, the reality of it, everyone has got different circumstances, right? But all the outcome here is, even if you do a tiny little bit, because everyone feels so confused about it and so overwhelmed, it's like everything needs to be perfect. It really doesn't. It's like even a tiny little bit. There have been studies that have shown just by adding toppers that could make a huge difference to your dog.
Mhm.
There are different type of kibbles out there that are like, and it's all about asking the right questions to the company. And look, I'm not saying the big companies are better, the small ones are or worse or whatever, right? But I'm just saying there are a specific set of questions that I always look for in terms of answer when I'm choosing a food, like especially if it's commercial one. And that's it, right? Like once you've got those answers and makes you feel confident, then it's fine. But if you then it's too much because you got too many dogs, there's it's still fresh food at the end of the day. Dogs are gonna love it, like you said. It's like, like fresh food, yes, please. And sometimes just add a little bit of cottage cheese, a bit of kefir, Greek yogurt. They just love it. And it's just a simple thing, like you said, you're prepping it for yourself, you just put it on that bowl. They love it and it's so beneficial for them. And I love that.
Yeah, start easy. I think most people get really paralyzed with the choices, so they just are afraid to making choices. They don't want to do it wrong. And I think the first step is know that you can't really do it wrong in some ways if you just start small and if you have access to. So the part that I feel am privileged to be able to offer pet owners is that I know we can't do it wrong because I actually test for these things. I can test for vitamins, I can test for minerals, I can test for taurine, I can test for amino acid. I can make sure that, okay, because people are always worried like, oh, if I'm not feeding complete and balanced, my dog's going to have deficiency. There's a lot of education out there, almost a little bit of fear saying that fresh food feeding is the number one reason for deficiencies.
Yeah.
And I will just say that I don't, that's if they're feeding the same thing over and over and over, right? Of course, like because that recipe is probably deficient in some way and you're doing it over and over. But if you achieve balance over time and you have a healthy diet, and if you want a peace of mind, you can test so that you are not running into deficiencies over time. I think we have to get over trying to put fear into people. And then feeding your dog should be a very enjoyable part. It should not stress you out. I see so many people getting stressed out. And I think if you're stressed, your dog's going to be stressed. And they'd be like, why are we so stressed around mealtime? And that is something I see a lot. You want to put it out there that know that you have options to test if you're worried about deficiencies. You can test and figure out and make sure.
What tests to do that? Have mineral analysis?
So hair mineral analysis will analyze minerals. There are vitamin tests that's usually through blood and amino acids. Taurine's a big one. A couple of years back, there was that scare about grain-free diet causing dilated cardiomyopathy. They found it linked to taurine. But today they retracted the statement. It's actually not been proven that grain-free diet actually causes dilated cardiomyopathy. It's more likely that because those grain-free diet have put in substitution, they put in ingredients that actually interfere with absorption of taurine. And I don't think that part is completely figured out yet. But taurine is a big part of keeping the heart muscle healthy. So I think for a lot of people, it's also that kind of worry. So if you want to know, you can test for it. But the interesting thing that I figured out, which I will point out as well, is we put a lot of fear into fresh feeding strategies. I test a ton of dogs that are eating kibble diet that are supposed to be balanced and complete. Those dogs end up with the same, if not more, issues in terms of deficiency, and actually toxins is a big issue. I see a lot of glyphosate, which is a pesticide. I see a lot of mycotoxin mold. That's probably very, very common. More common than people realize is, oh gosh, I have a small clinic. So again, not representative for everyone, but I'd be curious if you are a vet that's willing to run this. Run mycotoxin mold testing on kibble fed dogs. Because so far, every single dog I test on kibbles come up with mycotoxins. And
Wow.
that's very scary.
Wow, that is incredibly scary. Do you think it's because, it's the carb content in kibble grains, and then the grain fields have been sprayed with glyphosate? Do you think that's the reason why, or do you think there are other reasons?
Glyphosate, yes, because a lot of the kibble companies, they source from ingredients that are, left over from the human consumption, and also the storage issue. If you go buy a big bag of kibbles, right, and you open it, unless you're storing it in like super airtight container, but also even if you store in the airtight container, you got to open it, you got to scoop it out, you got moisture on your hands, and now that moisture is inside whatever container, right? But if you have a bag and you just leave it kind of open and you just go and scoop it out every day, it's exposed to air, it's getting oxidized, it's getting whatever is in the environment into the bag plus moisture. So I can't tell you if those mycotoxins were present already in the kibbles just due to processing and storage in the bag, or after people have opened it for a while, it develops over time. But I think it's very possible that if a bag of kibbles lasts, let's say, a month, 2 months, couple months, there's going to be things growing in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very sad, isn't it? And we do know that fresh food is normally either frozen or it's called like pantry fresh, that is like really like doesn't get any air. It's like smaller packaging and things like that. So, yeah, very interesting feedback. Like honestly, because yes, you said your practice is small, but if you see that reoccurrence every single time, and I'm sure you see patients every day, that tells us something. So yeah.
Mm.
Can I ask you, who, like as an integrative vet, what are, let's say I'm a dog owner and I really want to make sure that what we talked about, the different kind of proactive care that a dog owner should be thinking about, if possible, based on budget and based on what they believe in. What are the kind of things that we need to be doing if we want to take that approach every year from an integrative perspective that you recommend on a dog?
Ideally, if possible, definitely test for microbiome. I feel that's a foundation to everything. If a pet has a healthy microbiome, that is the best for the immune system and disease prevention. On top of it, I do a lot, as I mentioned, a lot of vitamin, minerals, and toxin testing, because these are things that unless you look, you would never know, because no pet really comes in the clinic and you can look at them and say, oh yeah, you got vitamin D deficiency. You can't tell. And you can't just willy-nilly supplements either. So some people will say, well, why don't I just supplement them with vitamins and minerals? Well, the issue is that if you don't know what they're deficient in and you're just supplementing, sometimes it's too much, and that can actually cause issues as well. It can cause toxicity. So you do have to figure out for each individual dog what is going on with that pet's body. And the other thing I always come back to is reminding people that the number one thing your dog needs is for you as a pet owner to take care of yourself. I see a lot of people that are going through their own stressors in life or health concerns or things going on. Meanwhile, know that your dog, because they're so close to you, they will feel the same energy. There are some studies that show, for example, there is actually a specific study that show a dog's microbiome closely mirrors their people's microbiome.
Wow.
And I see in clinic every day that pets mirror whatever's going on with their people, whether it's health or emotional. So I think it's worth a pause and say, what can we do as people to make sure that we eat a good diet, we have a healthy lifestyle, and you have a way to take care of yourself mentally, because I guarantee your dog will be much better when you can take care of yourself too. And that's another really big integrative veterinary tip that I often give to people, is to think about it from that lens as well.
And I totally agree with that. Like I see that with Rusty all the time. If I'm having a bad day, it's body language. How many times he gets up, goes on the sofa, and then he goes down, versus when I'm having a really good day. And it's like I can see how relaxed he is. We don't normally see it because we don't really spend time watching the dog all day long, right? But when you actually start noticing, I have read that somewhere and I was like, I want to see it. And I could see his eye tears, right? So I know when he's stressed, his tears will be like more prominent, basically, on a day where he's
Yeah.
not stressed. It's like little signs like that, and it's so
Yeah.
sweet. They match. They're like, because they are with us 24/7. They live the same kind of life. They can feel it, and yeah, it's scary, but also fascinating at the same time.
I think it's fascinating because a lot of the deeper integrative work that I'm doing now is very bioenergetic.
Yes.
So we now have technology that can measure basically frequencies and the almost like the electrical charges that cells carry, which I think is the next step in medicine. Because I can do all the testing, but I'm still not going to be able to get the kind of complete picture that I want. Like, okay, how is this whole body doing? I think that's the next layer, is the bioenergetics of people and pets, of like, there's the imbalance and what do we need to do to help bring it back more into balance. So
Yeah, it sounds so complicated, but fascinating at the same time. I love it. So maybe we can have a chat about this in 12 months' time. I'm sure like we have got way further ahead with the studies and things like that. I love that. Lily, if anyone is listening to this today and absolutely loves you and, the way you approach vet medicine, or, the way you practice, and really want to talk to you, whether they're in the UK, around the world, the US or around the world, what is the best way for someone to work with you?
yeah, so you can start by checking out our practice website. It's integrativedpet.com. And yes, we are based in Los Angeles, California, but we do have global telehealth, meaning that I can be available to pet parents worldwide. We have a concierge community, meaning that if you are international, there is a tier that's, the investment, because I know that I won't be seeing you in person, but you can get your questions answered. You can meet with our team. You can meet with me and, get the advice and get some support along the way, and maybe working with your veterinarian in tandem to get your pets the care that you need. So I think the best way is to find us on our website, follow us on Instagram at Integrated Pet. I also have a podcast, so it's called My Dog is Better Than Your Dog, where I share a lot of these conversations and invite experts very similar to what you're doing here. And I think that's also another good way to just see what I'm up to.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And I love your podcast. I was going to say, it's just a shame if you're not in the US and people can't see you. It's a shame because your practice is just the most beautiful fun I have ever seen. I would take, if I was there, Rusty would be there tomorrow, 1,000,000%. Unfortunately, it's not possible yet. But the way you built it, I just wanted to say, it's such, like Rusty just shakes. As soon as he is outside the back, he would just not stop shaking his entire time. And I can see why you built it the way you have. And the dog is your first priority, or the pet in general is your first priority, and it's so beautiful.
No, thank you. We tried to build it. I used to run house calls and I see what a big difference it would make when pets are not stressed. So we try to make it more like, okay, they're coming into my home.
Yes, I love that. Absolutely love that. But I will put all the links that you just mentioned as well in the show notes. And obviously, you are also now an expert featured in our community that we just launched. So dog owners will be able to find you as part of the DAFY community as well. So I will make sure your section is updated with your podcast as well and all the links we talked about. But yeah, I just want to say thank you. Absolutely love chatting to you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been always so much fun to talk to this community. And thank you so much for inviting me on.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. And thank you so much for watching. And we will see you on the next episode.
Thank you for watching. If you found this episode helpful, follow us on Instagram. And if you want first access to DAFY, join our waitlist now. The links are in the show notes.